Good morning YouTube and welcome to the tech review of OnePlus 7T. I've been using this phone for a month and a half right now. In this video we'll do an in-depth review of the OnePlus and would assign a tech review score to it. In case you're wondering what the tech review score is all about, go check the description for a detailed video on the same. I'm Smruti, you're watching the Tech 1857. Let's get started. The OnePlus 7T is an almost perfect example of what a no-nonsense phone can look and feel like. It does not have any pop-up cameras or edges bleeding over to the sides like the Pro version of the 7T. Instead, what you get is an aluminium frame with Gorilla Glass 5 on front and back. The glass on the back is frosted or matte, which gives it a premium look and is slightly more resistant to the fingerprint than a typical gloss finish glass would be. What is also great to see is that OnePlus changed the aspect ratio to a slightly taller 20:9. This, along with the slim bezels on the either sides and the glass on the back curving into a similarly colored metal frame, results in a rather easy to handle 6.5-inch smartphone. The camera hump on the back gives the OnePlus 7T a distinctive look and is easily the most polarizing design choice. As per my opinion, I'm not really worried about it because it fades away once you snap the case on it. And I think that's what most users would do. So all in all, there's very little to fault with the design and build quality of OnePlus 7T, except perhaps that OnePlus continues to ignore any official IP rating on the phone. With that said, numerous videos on the internet would vouch for water resistance of OnePlus phones. So I tried my luck with the OnePlus 7T for an underwater video, and guess what? The phone came out unharmed. We'll award the phone a category score of 8. The highlights are the matte look and how pocketable or easy it is to handle despite its screen size. But if you were to nitpick, OnePlus goes for standard materials instead of, for example, stainless steel, and lacks any official IP rating for the phone. The display on the OnePlus 7T brings 90Hz refresh rate to the regular non-Pro OnePlus phones. OnePlus calls it the Fluid AMOLED display. It's a 6.5-inch 1080p screen and comes with HDR10+ support. The display is also plenty bright, brighter than even the OnePlus 7 Pro. What that translates is great legibility outdoors. This is the first time ever that I've used a 90Hz display on a smartphone and I was absolutely pleased with it. The higher refresh rate just makes everything on the phone feel faster and smoother than it actually is. And if you're coming from a 60Hz panel, there's something you'll instantly notice and like. Does the display have any downsides? Well, yes. For a start, it's not the same QHD Super AMOLED variety that you get with the OnePlus 7T Pro. Instead, what you get is an Optic AMOLED screen, still made by Samsung, but in theory this should have slightly inferior viewing angles compared to the one on the Pro version. I said in theory because I had a very hard time discerning that difference. But the difference that I can make out compared to an iPhone, for example, is that the default setting on the OnePlus 7T is set to vivid, and that results in really oversaturated colors, so much so that photos on this phone can look weird at times. You do get an option in the settings to change that, but how many would change is anyone's guess. OnePlus 7T gets an 8-inch display identical score compared to the iPhone XS Max, and I think the higher refresh rate just more than makes up for all the negatives. This is a 3800 mAh battery powering the OnePlus 7T. In case you're concerned how the battery would handle all the 90Hz goodness, well, you have every reason to be. The battery life on OnePlus 7T is about average, and actually below average if you consider just the plus size alternatives. I was able to get about 5.5–6 hours of screen on time while depleting the battery in a day. But I'm not someone who uses the screen on very high brightness levels, so your mileage depending on your usage might vary. You can also, in theory, go to 60Hz setting and push the phone for some more time, but I would really loathe doing that. However, the WattCharge 30T definitely comes to the rescue here. It's the same 30-watt adapter you get with the OnePlus 7 Pro, but OnePlus is promising 23% faster charging speeds this time around. The WattCharge is no longer one of the USPs of OnePlus. You get many fast chargers out there in the market, and it's definitely not pushing the boundaries in terms of charging times, but it still remains plenty fast. We're going to give the battery a 8.5 primarily because of warp charging. Otherwise, the battery life is slightly better than iPhone XS Max, which gets a 7 in battery life. I've extensively compared the camera quality of OnePlus 7T with the iPhone XS Max in a separate video. I'll leave a link to that in the description, please have a look. The summary of that video is that OnePlus 7T is a very capable shooter and often outdoes the iPhone, particularly in scenes that require high dynamic range or are poorly lit. I was so convinced that the OnePlus is the better camera phone of the two that I took it as my primary device during my recent trip to Meghalaya, India. Here's a look at some of the samples from that beautiful place. In daylight, the photos from OnePlus have great exposure and colors while handling the noise well. You could see photos balancing exposure on the mountains and the sky effectively. Mind you, like we've covered earlier, the phone itself might not provide the most accurate representation of colors, but once you shift to a color accurate screen, you would appreciate the photos from OnePlus 7T even more. As the light drops, and now the samples are from back in Bangalore, OnePlus continues to produce good photos. It takes advantage of its larger sensor and wider aperture to handle bright sources well, a typical scenario in low light conditions. You could also shift to the night side to produce even brighter photos at night, especially when there are no moving objects. The ultra-wide lens is handy and more usable than I'd initially thought. What's more, it produces photos that are close to the primary lens in color and exposure, although the photos turn out to be softer. I was, however, unimpressed by a couple of things. First, the amount of resolved detail in photos captured by the OnePlus 7T is not the best. It's one of those areas where the iPhone XS Max performs better. Secondly, and more importantly, I was unimpressed by the camera performance of the telephoto lens. The colors on the telephoto camera was inconsistent with lower contrast. What made matters worse is the lack of optical image stabilization. You cannot, for example, switch between the primary and telephoto lens while recording video and expect the footage to be seamless. Speaking of video, here's a sample shot with the OnePlus. It allows us to shoot 4K at 60 frames per second and retains most characteristics of still image quality. The videos produce pleasing colors and are generally well exposed. Like in the photos, however, the resolved detail is less than industry leading, as is the overall smoothness of the video. In this category, we'll settle for the third score of 8 for the OnePlus 7T. OnePlus 7T comes with serious performance prowess as well. For starters, it has the best chipset on offer, the Snapdragon 855 Plus, and comes with 8 GB of RAM and UFS 3.0 storage. Coupled with a 90Hz display and Oxygen OS, it's among the fastest and smoothest Android phones out there. I like the idea of having a 1080p screen as well, even in a 6.5-inch smartphone, because that just ensures enough performance to spare to be used once the phone is 2-3 years old. The only areas it would come second is when you're directly comparing it to Apple's A12 or A13 Bionic in app load times. OnePlus 7T comes with Android 10 out of the box and with Oxygen OS on top. Oxygen OS in the OnePlus 7T, just like any other OnePlus phone, is neatly stocked with few updates to the UI that improves the overall user experience. I love the UI from OnePlus and also appreciate the new gestures with the Oxygen OS. It mimics the iPhone experience fairly well, and I didn't find myself trying to go back to the on-screen buttons. There are a couple of things to worry about amid otherwise flawless software with the OnePlus 7T. First, the Android Auto application was sluggish to use, and coming from CarPlay, it was especially easy to notice how sluggish the UI is. Apart from that, the second person, if I was in a call, the second person always hears his own echo, which is pretty annoying for the person you are in a call with. Secondly, there might be certain applications which might not have scaled well to the new aspect ratio that OnePlus 7T has, which is a slightly wider 20:9. For example, one of the applications I definitely use a lot is the CrickBuzz application, which provides cricket scores here in India and probably worldwide as well. But the videos in CrickBuzz application were always stretched out. The OnePlus 7T aces the software and performance category, and if you're searching in the Android realm of things, you'll be hard pressed to find another phone that matches this one. The only reason we are also providing an 8 in this category is because the scoring is relative and the iPhone XS Max was given a 9 in software and performance. In the final category, we'll look at other important things that make the phone complete. First, the box contents. OnePlus continues to ship their best chargers in the box, which is awesome, And they also have a pretty usable case for the phone. Along with that, you have some letters from the CEO and other documentation on the phone, but apart from these and the phone itself, you don't find much else. It's a little disappointing to see no headphones or USB-C to 3.5mm converter. There are a couple of ways to unlock the phone, and I'm a big fan of these options because I've always come up with scenarios where I would use one option over the other. You can choose between the insanely fast and probably not so secure face unlock, which works well in all situations except in the dark, or you can also choose to use the insanely fast in-display fingerprint scanner. The in-display fingerprint scanner is almost the fastest I have seen on any phone, but also comes with the cons of being an optical sensor, which is you have to deal with a blinding light when unlocking in the dark. So yes, if you're trying to unlock this phone in the dark, you might have not the most seamless experience. As is usual for OnePlus phone, it continues to ignore wireless charging and all novelties like reverse wireless charging. But you do get generous storage options. You can choose between the base 128 gigs or can go all the way up to the 256 gig variant. And in case you're looking out for some cloud storage, OnePlus provides 50 gigs of storage free for the first year with the OnePlus 7T. There's a physical slider to mute the notifications, which I find very handy. The phone provides well-rounded multimedia experience as well. It supports HDR10+ display and Dolby Atmos sound. The speaker quality of OnePlus 7T is neat and loud. Well, that is it. Those are all the categories that we would consider in the tech review. And if you followed the video this far, you would agree with me that the OnePlus 7T performs admirably well in all of these categories. It's one of those cases where the complete package is more than just the sum of its parts. It gets a tech review score of 56.5, which is 2.5 points more than even the iPhone XS Max. Here's a breakdown of how these two phones compare in different categories. That's a tech review for the OnePlus 7T, and I hope you liked it. In case you did, consider subscribing to the channel because I'll be putting out more such videos in the future. I'm already working on the videos for the Galaxy M30s and the Xiaomi Note 8 Pro. Also leave your suggestions, feedback in the comments below so that I can bake that all in when I'm putting out my next video. Until then, take care, goodbye.